giving direct instruction on how to be an advocate for yourself, how to be an advocate for issues you care about. It's really putting power in the hands of any person who wants to make change in their community. And I think we've seen that in terms of people who have come to Awake to volunteer with Awake who really have no clue about what to do. They're mad, they're passionate, and they want to channel that positively. And then to see a bill come through at the end on an issue that's affected their family is really, really powerful.
Welcome to Music City Giving, a show about the unsung leaders and volunteers behind Nashville's nonprofits, foundations, and charitable organizations. I'm Joe Crosby, and on today's show, I'm joined by Sara Beth Myers and Ashley Shults of Awake, Tennessee.
Women in Tennessee have really, it seems, been looking for solutions to a lot of problems that we have systemically in this state. And the way that we started it all sprung out of issues with domestic violence. And I was told that I should speak to some people at the state legislature to discuss what some solutions might be to those. So after that discussion with a couple of state legislators, we took the discussion to living rooms around Nashville. We met with women in East, West, North Nashville from all different parts of our community. And we started talking about what are the problems that we see facing women and kids, specifically in Tennessee. And everybody had different ideas, but we all arrived on a solution of we need to form an organization that just addresses issues that adversely impact women and kids, because there wasn't one currently that just focused on that issue, women and kids together. So from the very beginning, it was more of a question of, what can we do? And our first piece of legislation, we formed in November of 2013, and in January of 2014, we filed our first piece of legislation. And it wasn't because we knew what we were doing. We had no idea what we were doing. And I think that's pretty generous. None of us had had any experience in that. But we all took that leap together, and we got our first piece of legislation passed unanimously after just a few months of existing. And it was really one step at a time. After we did that, we said, we don't just want to focus on, picking up the crumbs and solving a problem on the back end. We want to work on prevention. And that's when we started developing our education curriculum. And that took a whole team of us. We started with maybe 20 women from around the community in various fields and brainstormed what are kids not learning in school that can help stop a lot of these gaps that are cycles we keep seeing. Poverty and violence, but mostly domestic violence, because that holds families back, specifically kids, because when they see it, that's a behavior that they tend to repeat.
We also, in terms of programming, have shifted to, we were in one school, then we were in multiple schools, we were in the Preston Taylor Ministries, we've expanded out into churches and community centers. In 2015, we had our first Artists for Awake.
That's right.
And so then that's now a yearly event. We've added a spring fundraising event as well. And so in terms of watching it build, we are also watching the fundraising and the awareness build in a really awesome way. And people are starting to know the name Awake and what we do, and also ways that they can get involved too. So that's been great.
And we can't forget, last year we hired our first employee.
Okay.
So we started out as an all-volunteer organization with people meeting before work, much like we are now, over lunchtime, and in the evenings, a lot of times after our kids went to bed. And that organization was born out of our free time, so to speak, and people dedicating it to that. And we raised enough money to where we could finally hire an executive director. And Yvette Hanshot is amazing.
Yeah, she's really, really pushed us forward.
She has. She's taken us to the next level. We are now in year 2 of having our own employee, and we are now working on hiring a second this year.
So back to I guess the goal is to pass specific legislation. This is probably my ignorance, but what does that process look like? You said y'all came in not knowing what the heck, what are we doing here? So what's that process look like?
Well, step one would be identifying a problem, and it needs to be a problem that adversely affects primarily women and or kids. And so in that identification process, what we do is we work with community partners, and we have to hear from what's going on, around the state. The YWCA in various regions of the state may be seeing different trends or different issues. And the Chattanooga Women's Fund is another really good example of an organization we've worked with. The Sexual Assault Center. We have worked with so many organizations to discuss, what do you see in the population that you serve? What are the issues and the trends that you're seeing? And is there a policy solution for that? Is there an education solution for that? And how can we work together? And so our ideas really come from everywhere. It's been surprising. We get emails from people or, Facebook messages, and they say, there's a problem here. Let's look into it. We use the summertime and our summer interns to conduct research on the issue, and we see if there are other national trends too. Are there other states who have legislation that benefits, and is there data to support that? And then we see, well, what would that look like in Tennessee? Where would that fit into the code? And what goal do we want to achieve with the legislation here? Then in the late summer, early fall, we identify, possible sponsors for that bill who might want to carry it. And then by this time, we are in the process. We finished drafting what the legislation would look like, and then we file it. And then basically we get volunteers. Again, our whole organization is volunteer-driven. So we train our volunteers through Advocacy and Lobbying 101 trainings. And this year, we're doing our first day on the Hill.
Yes, we are.
February 25th. Everyone is welcome from 10 to 1 at the legislature. And we'll train them. We send them in with a partner. In this case, it'll be small groups. And they have a one-pager that describes what the legislation is, why it's needed, the community groups that support it, and we train people to go in and advocate for an issue, and that will help achieve progress for women and kids. So that's how we do it, and we've done it 8 times.
Yeah, we have.
Yes. More to come.
Yeah. So, volunteers have to be extremely active in the organization, but what exactly are the volunteers doing to help, and what is the scope of the training that you're offering the volunteers? So
that's a great question for Ashley. She's volunteered in absolutely everything.
I have. Yes. They give me an option, I'm doing it. So there's a number of ways you can volunteer with Awake. The first way is you can teach our Healthy Relationships and Finances class, now called I Am an Advocate. So we've also rebranded that in terms of, after the wave of civic engagement after 16 and 18, we recognized a need for the women and the students we are working with to teach them how to be advocates for themselves and whatever issue they wanted to advocate for. So we've kind of shifted our educational programming so people could volunteer to work with students. That's either a one-time sign-up, you do it one Tuesday night, or you could do it throughout the whole program, which is only about a 5-week commitment. So they could volunteer to teach classes. They can volunteer to lobby, which is how I first got started. The training is about an hour long, where we really just kind of pull back the curtain of the legislative process. It feels very scary. It feels very distant. But truthfully, especially your state legislators, you send them an email and say you would like to meet, they are going to put you on their schedule. Most of them are incredibly lovely. Their employees, their legislative assistants are fantastic humans who are kind. And when the first time I went into one, I was so nervous, and I was fidgeting on my skirt. And the woman who was the legislative assistant was like, "Would you like a peppermint?" I was like, "Yes, thank you so much." So they're angels on earth. And so we train people how to go in and have those meetings. And you also can get involved with us with our 2 major fundraiser events that we have. If you are an events person or a person who is interested in kind of helping fundraise or development, we also have that opportunity for people who want to help us increase our capacity.
Okay. So what does that hour of training kind of look like? What is it, what are you actually teaching these volunteers? So I'm assuming it's volunteers teaching volunteers. So what does that kind of look like, that hour of training?
Yeah, it's basically, for education, it is kind of what we are going to be teaching, what to expect, how to sign up, how to make sure that your shift where you are shifted, and then really just answering any questions and kind of taking down that level of anxiety of not knowing. So the education training is a little bit shorter, and then the lobbying 101 training is really about basically the summation Sara Beth just gave about how a bill gets passed, giving that to volunteers so that they understand their role in the process and how important their role in the process is. Then we give a little bit of a breakdown about going and speaking with legislators. We have really great relationships with our legislators who have carried our bills before. We have a really awesome contingency here in Davidson County. So we'll have a legislator come speak to the group so that they can just say, hey, here are things, as a person on the other side of the desk that I am looking for or appreciate or that's especially persuasive. So they kind of get that insider tip. And then it's just questions. What questions can we answer? Because once you take away that mystery and help people realize it's really like the hardest part is finding a place to park down by Cornell Hall. Once you find a place to park and you're in the building, the conversations really are really great, and you really feel your power when you leave that room, even when a legislator says to you, well, I'm not sure, or I'm not on that committee, because it has to move through committees, so sometimes you're talking to people who are not even going to get to vote on it until the very end, but it's still important to touch that person, and so it's like you feel your power no matter what the outcome of the conversation is, and it's really, really awesome. And so once you are in the door, it's great. It's good stuff. Everyone should do it.
So you had mentioned, your partnerships with, local, I guess, national and statewide organizations. So, Thistle Farms, I saw on the website, YWCA, Center of Hope, among others. So how do you work in conjunction with these other organizations?
A lot of times it's actually over the phone, because, again, some of these are national organizations. We worked with CMV on our cytomegalovirus bill, and they're based in Arizona and Nevada. So, coordinating with them was mostly over the phone, but when we get to meet in person, it is like we're meeting old friends. So we got to go to a conference down in Texas a couple of years ago and explain how we strategize to get that legislation passed on healthcare, here in the state of Tennessee. And really, I feel like we have friends all over the country. Yeah. But Western Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee, we've worked so closely with Knoxville, with Chattanooga. We're working on Memphis as well. We have really good connections in a variety of different parts of the state. And it feels like, when you drive to meet those people, we always have a retreat with our board in the summer, and we try to go somewhere different to make sure that we're actually making those connections in person. And last summer we went to Knoxville, and we got to tour the Y there in downtown Knoxville, and we got to meet with some people and stakeholders in the community where we could just sit down and talk face to face about problems that their domestic violence shelter was facing, challenges that they see, and how can we help? What can we do as an organization to help alleviate some of these issues that you're seeing?
Sure.
Yeah, something that came to mind when she was saying that I hadn't put together was they talked a lot about, they do a lot of work with truancy, which with students who are coming from families that are experiencing domestic violence, and I hadn't even put those two elements or issues of the problem together. And so it's just really helpful, especially those that are in direct service to women or kids. They have an insight to the issues, gaps in the law that we do not have. And so it's really powerful to even just hear their day-to-day, how they're servicing people, what kinks they're seeing. And we like to take that and then see if there is a legislative fix, how can we do that?
That's a good way of describing it because, really, we are at 10,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So we do not provide these direct services. So we're not, while we're teaching kids and survivors of human trafficking, about prevention issues, we're not the ones who, if there's an emergency and that family needs shelter, we're not the ones providing that service. So we need to work with other organizations, and we have to figure out what problems, what trends are you seeing, and how can we help you from a larger 10,000-foot view? And how can we do the research that will help you and collect the data and figure out what is the best solution for Tennessee? Because every region is going to look a little bit different.
Sure. Sure. So, that was going to be kind of my follow-up. Y'all kind of answered there, but the value you're bringing each other. I mean, they are the boots on the ground. They're doing the work in the field, and y'all are bringing that legislative support and advocacy support to the courts and that sort of thing in the form of legislative. Is that kind of what
and prevention, because in working, we've worked in shelters, teaching children in the shelter and hearing from them. So much of what we do, I think the most important thing that we do is listen, so that we can understand, what is that problem? What is this child going through? And how can they relate to other kids who are going through something similar? And again, in each family, it's going to look a little bit different, but there are common denominators. So how do we address that through a lesson plan? How do we teach them to advocate for themselves, their friends, their family, their community, their state, their nation, all of that? Because being an advocate and standing up for yourself in your relationships is one of the most important skills that you can learn, that is really just taught through osmosis rather than in school in a lesson plan. So we try to have activities that will address that and make kids think about that in a more formal way than they would just by soaking it up.
So, y'all have brought this up already a couple times, but education, it seems to be kind of the core principle across the whole organization. It's all about the education of volunteers, of the the people trying to serve. I kind of just looking on the website, seeing financial independence, the truancy that you just brought up. What is it about education that's such an important part of what you're doing?
Yeah, I love that you said it was the foundation of what we do. I think education is the foundation of being a citizen of the world. You cannot take action if you are not informed. You cannot take action if you don't know how to take action. And I think that that's what's happening right now in America, is this paralysis of over-information simultaneous with not enough information, and people don't know what to do with what they're feeling. And so what I love about Awake and kind of Awake's strategy for change is it is a very specific set of information that unlocks a really insanely powerful tool, and that is lobbying for issues that affect your family and your friends' families and your family's families. And so to me, it really we pull back the curtain of healthy relationships in a really explicit way. Here is a healthy relationship. Here is a boundary. Here's what you can expect in a healthy relationship. We pull back the curtain of what it means to advocate for yourself. We pull back the curtain of what the legislative process is. And so this idea of things that either some people assume are implicit or either don't want the average person to know, if we are thinking more nefariously. And so that is what I love, is it really puts, by giving direct instruction on how to be an advocate for yourself, how to be an advocate for issues you care about, it's really putting power in the hands of any person who wants to make change in their community. And I think we have seen that in terms of people who have come to Awake to volunteer with Awake who really have no clue about what to do. They're mad, they're passionate, and they want to channel that positively. And then to see a bill come through at the end on an issue that's affected their family is really, really, really powerful.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that description, because education, I have to talk about our model now, because education is the foundation of our model. So what we learned early on is you absolutely cannot just have a top-down approach. That never works if you don't have prevention as well. So education forms the heart of that prevention. Let's stop these problems before they start. And so as education with the foundation, then we have our roof as policy. And then in between is the social change that we're really striving for. And we need volunteers at the foundation level and the roof level in order to make it work. Some people love doing both. Some people are comfortable doing both. Others just say, I want to work with kids. I want to be in the classroom. Or I am inspired by survivors of human trafficking. I want to be in a classroom with women who have gone through hell and back, and I want to see what I can do to help these women recover and get reintegrated in society and get them resources. Or I want to dip my toes into the water of what is the Tennessee General Assembly like? And it is a strange pool at times. So we are so happy to share all of those opportunities with anybody who wants to do it, because anybody can do it.
So yeah, the next thing to talk about, along with the education, would be the actual programs and services you're providing. So you already mentioned the truancy intervention project. So can you kind of talk through what that is and kind of how you go about, implementing that or educating on that?
I think that's you.
All right, let's talk about truancy. Yes. So truancy is a problem that is really a national problem. If you're not going to school, obviously you're not learning what you need to learn to be a functioning citizen in society. But it's really looking at the underlying cause of truancy that we were most interested in. And oftentimes, as Ashley mentioned before, it is a problem in the home. It is domestic violence. It is homelessness. It is, a lack of food. It is simply being in the wrong area to catch the bus. It could be a number of different issues that are preventing a child from going to school where they should and on a regular basis. And so basically modeling our program off of what Atlanta was doing with the Truancy Intervention Project there, we tailored it here for Davidson County, worked with Metro Nashville Public Schools, worked with the juvenile court system, with Judge Calloway, Magistrate Wade, and made sure that we could train a group of lawyers who would be able to work pro bono so they could represent the students and the student could feel comfortable going into a truancy proceeding, which looks like court and sounds like court and can be scary and even reminiscent of court proceedings that they may have attended, for a family law case, or maybe they were in court for a domestic violence case. Maybe they've been, to the Family Safety Center. They needed someone to be able to advocate for them and someone who was trained on these are the issues to look for. We don't just want to help you in this one proceeding. We want to help get to the root cause of why you're missing school and then help work with the school to solve the problem. So it's very collaborative, and we need lawyers to be able to do that. And then what we would like to do is also work with more citizens who aren't lawyers, volunteers who want to come and be a guide or a mentor to that student to help with the solutions outside of that court process.
Okay. And you brought up Atlanta. How often are you kind of looking towards either larger municipalities to kind of model after what they are doing? Is that a common practice?
All the time. I'd say we are always looking. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And if something is working somewhere and there's good data on it, like this solution worked in this community. Look at what Wisconsin is doing. Look at what Massachusetts has done. Look at what Texas has done on this issue. And let's see what we can do in Tennessee. What do we have here that's similar? Do we have anything that's similar? And what can we do to adapt what they've done for Tennessee and what will work here?
Sure. Okay. The next one would be it might be a similar response. The financial independence program. That was the other one that kind of stood out to me as, what are you kind of trying to tap into at the core of the financial independence, for women and kids?
Yeah, we, through research and collaboration, a large reason why survivors of domestic violence stay in an unhealthy situation is financial dependence on their abuser. And so in thinking about prevention and ways to prevent that problem, if women, men, kids of all ages know how to have a bank account, how to save, how to make financially smart decisions, then we are hoping that we are going upstream to that problem. And so the financial independence is woven into each lesson in our I'm an Advocate programming, so that each student, each time they come, gets reminded of a new kind of financial literacy component, and it's woven in with this idea of, if I'm an advocate for myself, if I'm an independent thinker, if I'm taking care of myself, I am also taking care of my finances in a way that makes me powerful in my own way.
Sure.
And we do spend time, talking about healthy dependence on a person versus unhealthy dependence. Because we talk with kids about, things that they're really familiar with, like who takes you to the doctor, who teaches you how to brush your teeth. There are some very basic things. Who buys your clothes for you? And it may be a trusted adult. It could be a family friend. There could be a number of people who are helping with that. But then what is unhealthy? Someone who tries to control your financial situation, someone who won't let you buy something that you're interested in saving towards, but they buy themselves certain things that they're interested in getting, and we start talking about power and control within the context of financial dependence and independence.
This kind of goes back to the style blueprint. I actually read that last night. The interview you did with them. So there was a quote in there. You kind of credited your dad as being a mentor. He showed me what it meant to be a problem solver and a person who can make a positive impact where you live. So, the father of almost 2 girls, 2 little daughters, and this could go for any parent, but what advice, and then this question for both of y'all, what advice would you give to, dads, moms, whoever, parents, to help raise, I have daughters on here, but, daughters or sons, to be strong and independent? What's that advice y'all would give?
Boy, I try to do this every single day. I had amazing parents. I have amazing parents. They are still a huge influence on me. And I try to be that model for my kids that my parents were to me. And I want them to see me engaged in the community. I want them to see me helping other people. And I like to bring them along. They've been to so many Awake events.
They're good sports.
They are good sports. I think there was one where my daughter actually took the mic away. She started talking.
Future politician. She's on her way.
Yes. But I want that to be encouraged. We love having kids at our meetings because that's one of the barriers for people to get involved in organizations. Bring your kids. You don't need to get childcare. They need to see you in action. And, my dad used to serve on boards in the community, and people would walk into his office, and he would bring me to his office, and I would get to sit there and color, or do whatever I did, doodle, and watch people come in with problems. And watch how my father would help solve those problems. And he told me, being a lawyer means being a problem solver. And so from a very young age, I thought, I want to solve problems for other people. I want to figure out how I can help people through something bigger. And in this case, we help them through the law, but we help them on a very intimate level in the classroom as well. And I think it's important to reach kids where they are. And they're in school. And if they're not, we're trying to help them be in school, at least be in school more. But wherever they are, we need to be there, and we need to meet them, eye to eye, and figure out, they're little people. What are you seeing? What is your perspective? And listening to them because they're smart. And not taking that for granted either, that kids are so intelligent and that they soak it up. And something that we hear so often is, well, my kids slept through whatever that was. That episode of domestic violence, whatever it was, that argument. They were asleep. They didn't hear it. Kids hear so much more than we think they do, or that we're even aware of. We need to talk to them and listen to see what they're actually soaking up, because that's what they're learning from us every day. It's not so much what we're saying to them, but how they're seeing us interact with other people. I think that's one of the best things a parent can do. Demonstrate and emulate the behavior that you want to see in your own children. And I hope that I'm doing that as a parent.
You are.
Was today magical? I hope it was magical for you children.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot when you were talking. I was first thinking about my mom loves to say little pitchers have big ears, and thinking about how kids are picking up everything, what you are saying and what you are not saying, how you are interacting with people and how you are not interacting with people. And I think for me, we need to be more honest with kids and young adults. We don't do anyone a service by telling a glossed over version of history. I think it it keeps kids from getting involved in problems, and kids are smart. And kids know how to solve problems, and those that are closest to the pain are closest to the solution. And I just think we got to be more honest with our students and young people about what reality is and how they can make a change in certain ways. I used to teach 8th grade. Now I work with a lot of young people on campuses on the presidential campaign I'm working on, and there's just such power to them, and they have a whole set of issues. So for them, the environment, guns, and equality, everywhere I go, they're like, I want to talk about the environment and gun safety and equality everywhere, no matter the age. And those are very real problems for them. And so they are going to be working towards the solution. They're a future politician. They're our future parents. And so I just think my biggest piece of advice is to be honest with your students and kids so that they can more thoughtfully engage in some of our largest problems.
So, I always kind of bring this up. There's people who can give monetarily. There's people who can give their time. There's people that can't do either, but they can help in some way. What's the best way people can reach out to Awake?
Really just going to the website. There's a way to sign up for our email list there. You can reach out to us directly. You can message us on Facebook. Our executive director, Yvette Hanshaw, is excellent at responding. She's amazing. And so if there's a question or how can I get involved, that would be the best way to do it. And then just keeping up to date on our social media to make sure that you don't miss any big events like our Day on the Hill on February 25th.
Yes. And that's info@awaketn.org.
Perfect. Any other value you want to bring to the listener? You think of anything else?
For me, I just would really encourage everyone to, whatever their issue they feel, there's too many issues to solve. Please do not try to take them all on. But whatever issue that you want to solve and you see in your community, I would really encourage you to find a way to make your little slice of the world a little bit better of a place. And Awake has not only made me a better citizen, it has really taught me just like radical empathy, because the more you get out of your bubble and interact with people who have had different life experiences than you, like I swear your heart grows 7 times larger. And it helps you think about problem solving. It helps you think about the complexity of issues. And the more diverse opinions you have around the table, the better decision I think you get to. And so I would just really encourage everyone to not let the paralysis of fear stop them from taking action in one area of their communities.
I love that, because we can help you grow and you can help us grow. So it really is a symbiotic relationship there.
Yes, not parasitic.
No, absolutely not. We don't want to talk
People
at
gotta remember
you.
that word.
That's good.
Good job. Bio. Thank you, Ms.
Yay,
James.
Science.
Yes.
But it's important. It's important for us. We have to listen. We want to help you be an advocate, and we want you to help us be better advocates too.
Thanks for listening to Music City Giving. For more information on this episode or other episode, visit musiccitygiving.co. That's musiccitygiving.co.